Good morning.
Good afternoon, good evening, good night, Rachel. How are we?
Very, very well. And yourselves?
Not too bad. Big man. Easy. How are we?
Sure, yeah, I think good, yeah.
What?
You sound convinced.
I was kind of put off by Rachel's just good morning there. I was kind of like, I kind of didn't realize we'd started. I thought we were just chatting. But yeah, we're in.
We're in 3 different time zones again for the Any Given Run Day podcast. We are going international.
Again, although my international running career is not fantastic.
Oh, how you get? Put mine on this week.
Huh?
Mine's following yours. We are in the middle of winter and it has just last rain. And like, it's different here to at home. Like here, there's a lot of days where it looks like it might rain and nothing eventuates. But my God, when it rains, it like flash flooding constantly. And like this could happen for 2 or 3 days in a row. And then you might get like a number of clear days and then you just get downpours again. But like, it just rains for the day then, but heavy.
I realize as a country that in Ireland, obviously, that obviously rains all the time. We don't get like real rain because they always see in the movies and stuff, there's real heavy downpour and stuff. You're like, it's not like that. But then in Australia, like I was in New York and I got caught in the same thing. I'm like, oh, this is like, this type of rain exists where we just get like little misty kind of, obviously it rains here all the time. Like today, it's getting that stage now where it's getting humid, but still raining. Like today's run now went for a 12K run. And I was like, the heat, do I wear a jacket? Do I wear a t-shirt? Do I wear a sleeveless top? Looks like it's going to rain. It mightn't rain. Maybe it will rain. Maybe it's too hot. Ended up raining and being too hot at the same time. What do you do?
On one of my runs the other day, it's very warm over here. It's 24, 25 degrees most days. But I went running and it started raining, but it was that misty kind of rain. And I was like, oh, that's lovely. I am never happy. Never happy.
I always say rain's the worst thing before you go for a run. But when you're actually in that run and it starts raining, sometimes it can be an absolute blessing. You're kind of like, if it was like this, look out the window.
Windy, as long as it's not windy. You know, a little bit of rain, fine.
Today now, I decided not to run today because I was going to go straight after work. And then it just, like, it was nice all day. And then about an hour and a half before work ended, first downpour. And then it kind of cleared up. And then just as I was leaving work, downpour. So I was like, right, I'm not running straight after work. I'll go home for half an hour. I'll get changed at home and then head out. Downpour. Like it just was like that on, off all evening. So I was like, you know something? It was windy as well. Like I wouldn't have minded the downpour if it was calm. But the rain was going sideways. It was so windy and it was such heavy rain. So I was like, nah.
And this is where you start to consider treadmills.
Yes.
And on that note, because we've turned into that podcast and it just talks about the weather for the intro, we are going to hit the intro music and go straight into today's episode of the Any Given Run Day podcast. Let's go.
I mean, we are Irish. Of course, we're going to talk about the weather.
You're an Aussie now.
Not chat. I will never be.
You're an Aussie and Eric is finished for the next couple of days. Finish?
Let me finish.
Yes?
Yeah, good job.
I was like, have you started saying something?
No, she said you're Aussie and I just said, let me finish. But I had
I get it. I'm so slow.
Wow, that penny was high up.
Oh, wow. That penny. I could have skipped that from here.
Everyone on the podcast is going to see that penny drop. Oh, man.
My running, Sean, you asked me in the intro. It's been going, which is surprising. But I went out with the intentions. I was like, I've done my 6Ks and 6Ks were starting to feel not as death. And I was like, right, I'm going out a little bit tired. I'm noticing the tiredness and stuff from getting back into training. Also, we're working hard here. I'm not on holidays. The brain is very tired. So I kind of was going out a little bit defeated as it was because I was wrecked. And we're flying in a simulator. So I don't know if I'd ever go to Disneyland or any of these places where you go on one of the rides where you're watching a TV screen, but everything just moves and that's the ride. But anyway, that's what the simulator is. So you kind of, when you're doing some of the extreme emergencies, you kind of come out with a little bit of sea legs. So like you're kind of wobbling as you're coming out, but that kind of continued for about a day and a half for me. So anyway, I was feeling a little bit rough and tired. And then I was like, right, I'll go for my run. And I was at lunchtime, and again, it was 24 degrees. So I was like, I'll do 8K today. I was like, time to step it up, week 1.5. After 3.9K, I hit the stop and said, fuck this, I'm walking home. And my head just felt so light. My legs felt so heavy. I couldn't catch my breath. And I was like, you know what? Some days it's just not going to be your day. So
that feeling you got, that's what I get every time I get car sick. So I have no sympathy for you whatsoever, because you always give out to me with my little travel bands and stuff. But you had to wear them in the simulator travel bands, it would have been all right. For those that listen to the travel bands, things around the wrist where you had the little ball around between two veins. Don't tell me they don't work, because every time I wear them I don't get sick. Well,
I'd love to bring you over here and show you. You'd be puking into a bucket for the whole day.
That's why I'm unsure about watching Top Gun 2 in the cinema, just because of the flight sequences and stuff. I'm like, I actually might just get travel sick in the cinema for the first time.
It seems how we've gone on this tangent. That's coming out of the cinema. That's out of the cinema since yesterday.
Is it already?
Already. It was only in for 3 weeks.
There goes my plans for seeing it in 2 weeks' time when I got quiet in the cinema. I can't go to the cinema when it's full.
I'm going to Stella on Monday night to watch it there, because that's the only place that's shown it.
Jesus.
Yeah. Well, I've already seen it, but I'm going for round 2. Yeah. So anyway, back to my running woes. But yeah, yes. So we're going to see today. Temperatures are the same. Good bit of wind out there. So the target is 8K, but yeah, look, if I get to the 6 again, that's an improvement on yesterday. And we'll see how we go. But it's it's coming really good. I'm starting to feel better about myself. And it's funny how even just the consistency over 2 weeks of just getting out. So even that, I was a little bit annoyed with myself, but I suppose people who are starting the marathon journeys are just getting out and running. 3.9K is better than OK in the couch. So 100%. Keeping that kind of attitude is kind of what accepted me. And then I got a 2K walk home as well. So I was still moving, I was still exercising. I kind of let my body come down off it and relax and think about a few things. And it was probably needed. So we'll see how we go today with a little bit more energy and probably not feeling as bad, but we'll see how we go. Probably slow it down a little bit as well and just try and get those mental blocks of getting over that 6K now.
Gotcha. Definitely glass half full in that approach. Similar to yourself, but I'm going to be a little bit selfish in this next question. So obviously I couldn't train for 2-3 weeks with the eyes and all the rest. And now I'm back training. I'm back for a week, 2 weeks. So I feel consistent, getting close to where I am. But as we record this podcast to Friday, it's exactly a week away before I try again to get a sub 25K. So I'm in a limbo where I went to intervals yesterday. I just my first proper interval session, I'd say, in well over a month. So it was the minute on, minute off. And it was probably the fastest I've done. I did a 12K today. I'm planning to do a long run on the weekend. But I'm at that stage now, it's week 6, where I'm like, I need to do that a little bit more to get there. The watch is just saying you're just hovering around 20 minutes for the 5K. I'm like, it's usually overestimates what I could do. So I'm like, do I get an interval session in during the week, maybe early Monday, Tuesday, and then a light run Wednesday, Thursday, and then go for on a Friday evening? Or do I leave out the intervals just with the miles and the legs, get that slow aerobic conditioning, and then build it up from there? So, Rachael, since I used your 5K plan to get that well over a minute off my time back in February, and I do feel like I'm faster than that 2040, but I'm not too sure if I can hold that fast pace for 5K. What would you recommend here and what I just said there?
Oh, putting me on the spot. Mm-hmm. I don't think I'd go out for an interval session. I just think that's too high intensity. Not when the race is Friday night. It'd be different if it was like a Sunday or something. But I'd probably go and do some short tempo or something, but get in some race pace strides. So like those really short bursts at the end of your run. Do them early in the week, because I don't know, a lot of people don't do them, but do either of you do them? Like I love at the end of a run where I've gone slow, just getting in a few really quick strides. You're just opening up like the hips, you're flying across whatever the road, and they can just make you feel really good. They can just lift up a run and they just get your fast twitch muscles moving.
I was doing them earlier in the year, but when I was going for 5K and 10Ks, but when I got towards the half and stuff, it kind of just went, Why I don't know, but kind of went out the way. My easy runs, I'd finish with because we talked before, but that was like roughly 20 seconds or so for strides. Am I right in saying that? And
I think, Sean, I could probably answer the why for you because I think we're similar. I'm going for a run. I know I have to run 10K, 5K pace, 50 minutes, an hour works. I usually have something on 15 minutes after I've finished. So when it comes to like finishing the run, it's like, oh, I need to do my strides. Like, fuck you, no time. It's the same as when I was like, oh, I'll do my abs at the end of my weights workout. I never do them. I'm always like, nah, time up, let's go. So for me, I think, with the stride things, I need to be better disciplined in my time set aside for training. If I'm going to be including strides and enjoying a stretch afterwards, I have to stop going. I have 40 minutes, go running. You know, like it's
well, then I would say stop your run 5 minutes sooner because your strides are not going to take 5 minutes. You don't even cover a kilometer in your strides.
Yeah, and that's one thing I'm not used to.
Yeah.
And because I'm always conscious of, oh, you need to get to the 8K because 7.4 on Strava make you look like a little bitch. You know, like it's...
Yeah, I got out of that just because my loop is roughly 7. I felt a personal attack in that one because my loop is like 7.29 all the time. I always feel like when I'm finished, I'm like, would you not just take a right back down there, go down the road a little bit, come back and get to the 8K and the 5 mile in? I'm like, I can't get in the habit of just things for Strava. But to your point, I'm like, little bitch.
I'm always like that on the bike. It's like, do I stop at the kilometer? Or do I stop at, even when I'm running, do I stop at the 5 minutes, you know, on the 5 minute, whatever the next 5 minute mark is, or do I go to a kilometer? But then if it was a case of like, let's say you did 29 kilometers on the bike and it was like, oh, if I get to 29, would I not just go the extra kilometer to 30? And then it's like, where do I stop?
Yeah, and it's of no real benefit except that just even metric number on a Strava for others to see. Like, you're not getting better conditions, stuff like that. Like, I did it for a 0.3 before, like going into the driveway. I was like, I'm not there yet. So like strolling the driveway, like, I got it. And then I forgot I had the cleats clicked into the pedals and just tumbled over onto the ground. All for 0.3 of a kilometer. Worth it.
So Rachael, talk us through strides. What should we be looking out for as we're going to try a little stride session? So I go on my easy 25-minute run. I'm doing heart rate training, so I'm taking it nice and easy, and I cover whatever kilometers. It doesn't matter what I cover, but I've done 25 minutes. And then how do I go about setting up for strides?
So I would normally just stop and just, you know, hover, do a few like, oh, look at me, I'm a runner. I know some of these stretches kind of. But then like strides are meant to be feel good. So you're just meant to run nice and tall and you nearly exaggerate your knee lift. And it is just to train your body to go short bursts, but it opens up everything. So if you're running nice and tall, so your chest is opened up, your arms are opened up, then your hips, you're getting really high knees. It's just, I suppose it means that if you're like, say, Seán at the moment training for longer stuff, so everything's slower, it's still getting in that quicker work, but like no intensity. It's, you know, maybe 5 by 20 seconds. So very, very short. But yeah, it can just really feel good. And it just reminds your muscles that, okay, I can run quick. And, you know, it keeps those fast twitch fibers activated if you haven't used them in a long time. Which can really happen when you're just doing long runs and marathon trainings. If you don't add in strides or intervals, you can really just become a slow runner, essentially. Yeah. And like you don't have to do them all the time. But definitely it just stops you plateauing. And I think that can be a big thing for people, plateauing, hitting this pace, and then feeling like, oh, I always run at that pace, like slower feels weird, faster, I just can't do. So by doing strides, the fact that everything is exaggerated about it, you're running taller, you're running higher knees, like you don't have to do it exaggerated, but I tend to. You're like, okay, I'm getting out of that rush. It might only be short, but it's me reminding my body we can go a bit quicker.
It seems like a great way as an introduction into intervals. If people are doing couch to 5K programs and all that, it's easy to say finish it with a 5 to 8 strides of 20 seconds of working your technique, as opposed to, okay, now you're starting to do intervals straight away. And also having that quick recovery time, as like you said, like it's not going to be too taxing on the body, that you're able to go back out a day or two later and do your easy runs. Whereas intervals, especially if you haven't done them in a while, you go into intervals and you're out of breath and stuff like that. One, it could be just off-putting to go back out there again and try it. But two, there is that longer recovery time. The legs are a lot more stiff and sore after it.
Yeah, like they're definitely the most basic form of intervals. Just 5 by 20 seconds. Take about a minute walk in between. And, it is an introduction to that kind of more structured training compared to just your runs. And definitely a good way to kind of, especially if you're starting out and you don't think you can go quicker. A lot of people, if you're doing the couch to 5K, might still be saying, oh, I'm not a runner, I can't run, and I'll never be quick. And it's like, yeah, but you can, you can just do something simple, and you can change that perception of yourself by including something like these into it. Being like, it is an interval. It doesn't have to be a crazy 5 by a mile, 5 by a stride. It's still an interval. You're still getting out there. You're still running. You're still doing it.
I suppose, Rach, there's one question that people who are not really used to it is, because I know I've told people to do strides and they're like, stride one, sprint. So how would you describe the pace, or the feeling of the pace, or the comfort level, or the relative effort level for those who are getting started?
I suppose relative effort level is, obviously you might be out of breath at the end, but it doesn't tax you out. Like, it was still just an easy run at the end of the day. You're not going to feel any more tired. I kind of would tend to go about race pace. And then coming up to races, you might do a longer effort, hovering at race pace, but generally they'd be around your target race pace or a bit quicker. And like, even that 20-second burst, it's over before you even realize, if that makes sense. You just start, and then even if you just count to 20 in your head, 1, 2, and you're like, oh, I'm almost there, 3, 4. So you're definitely going at that kind of race pace. And again, depending on how long you're going, like marathon race pace, you probably would do strides a bit quicker than marathon race pace. But at the end of the day, if you're aiming for race pace, the speed depends on the distance you're doing, because 5K race pace is going to be an awful lot quicker than marathon. But you can still incorporate it no matter which discipline you're doing. Did that kind of answer?
Yeah, no, 100%. It's just,
I can't remember the parts there.
Anytime I say I do strides, people are like, well, how fast? It's like, well, how fast do you want to run? Like it's
yeah.
So like, but like that, and those who are moving to do marathons, I would kind of echo Rachel in there, and don't let your body plateau. I don't know, Sean, I've found with me, kind of intervals have really, really looked after me in terms of keeping that faster run still in the back pocket, because I've even found myself out there, just trucking around at my 3-4K, and then finding myself realizing I'm at a 5:30 and then wanting to slow down to the 6 minute, because I'm like, I can't run that fast anymore.
Yeah, it's the same. So when we first started this podcast in 2020, I think I was a big fan of the 400 meters by 8 and getting that 2-minute rest in between. So I'd always do that, and I'd always my rest was just a rest stop, and that's before Rachael talking about slow jogging between intervals and all the rest. So I literally had 2 points, and I'd literally 400 meters. I'd rest 2 minutes, go back at it again. This before Garmin watch as well. So it's kind of like, 2 minutes is gone. Maybe it's another 30 seconds, 2 minutes. Look at the stopwatch and stuff on the iPhone and keep adding up. But I found I always got to a certain point. I never really progressed in it. And I think it was because I didn't vary those intervals. So then at the start of the year, this year, is only when I really got into them properly. So Rachel started introducing me to the Mona Fartlek, the 1 minute on, 1 minute off, the 5 minutes, the 3 minutes slow, 3 minutes medium, 3 minutes fast by 6. And I found that when I started doing the different intervals, that my pace started to change, because then it's just my body going, it wasn't just getting used to the same runs over and over again, getting used to the same intervals over and over again. Now it's just a bit more challenging by switching up and going those different paces. Just like we talked a couple minutes ago about the easy runs, just throwing in those strides at the end, like, ooh, I'm opening up now. I'm opening the hips. I'm getting at different levels and stuff. I found that started to work for me when I started switching them in, but only when I had that base level of I ran for 6 weeks consistent, and then start bringing in those intervals from there.
Start Oh, sorry, I was going to say you
does it
start
make you-
understanding pace when you do that. Like you start understanding what, if you think a stride run quick and to someone who just runs slow, that's when the question is like, well, how quick do you mean? But if you start varying your intervals and you start going, like that 5 minutes, 5 minutes, 5 minutes, or whatever it is, the 3, 3, 3, where you're progressively getting quicker and then slow it back down and build up again, you start understanding, okay, there is varying levels of quicker. And it's just finding one that suits you for strides that's comfortable. It should be that comfortable quick.
You were going to say something, Eric, or?
Yeah, no, it was based on that in terms of what you were saying about challenging the body. I suppose having trained with Rachael and following Rachel's plan, you probably were a little bit of it because knowing what you know about muscle development and strength training of how you have to keep challenging the body and varying whether it's more reps or more weight included with good recovery and sometimes just doing something different. It's kind of running is the exact same. Just we're using different muscles, we're using different techniques, the cardiovascular system a little bit more. But you can't let yourself get comfortable, I suppose, is you constantly have to be that little bit uncomfortable to develop, I suppose, is what I'm getting at. Have you noticed that? Or are you pushing
so
that?
There has to be adaptation in some form. And you see it in especially if you go to your local gym all the time, you see the same people doing cross training, the same paces, the same exercise, the same 3x15, the machines and all the rest. And you could see them week on week, month on month, year on year. And that's not to put them there or anything to them. They're not going to change. And to them, that could be just a mental space, get 45 minutes, whatever it is, not judging. But they won't change. They won't adapt. They won't get stronger. They're like, that's their weights and that's it. And even in the gym working in now, like I could say an exercise and they'll go straight for the same dumbbell. So we had a challenge kind of thing last week where it was floor pressing and they're going for as many reps they can in a minute. So they got like 40, 50 reps, whatever it was. And then during this week, it was the same exercise, but it was only 15 reps. And all of a sudden they switched back to what they were doing before the games. So they came in, they got a lighter weight. And I was like, coming over to them and they started blasting out to get their 15 reps. They got the 15 reps, obviously with ease. I was talking to them, I was like, how'd you on at the big event last Saturday? Like, oh, great. I was like, how many reps did you do on that floor press exercise? They're like, 45, 50. And I was like, just nodding and looking at the weights they're using now. And it's like, you used heavier weights and you got 45, 50. You went back to lighter weight today for 15. That doesn't make sense, does it? And like, I'll get heavier weights. I'll get the same class. I was like, no, you'll get even heavier now when you go for 15, where you make it really challenging. But like that happens in everything. You and it happens in my runs and stuff. Individuals just like slip back into the same thing. And and that's the one thing we come back to about having the plans. And the big change for me, I know we've mentioned already, was having that 5K plan by Rachael. Because you can look back at my numbers. I was stuck around that 22-minute mark because I kept doing the same intervals over again. I kept doing the same runs, the same distances, the same directions all the time. Like I wasn't varying my runs enough. And I was like, why am I plateauing? And then I was trying to run harder in those easier runs. I thought that was the answer. And then I was getting injured because I kept running hard and kept my 5Ks. I thought at the time, you can go back in the podcast in 2020 where I talk about I kept hitting the hills on all my runs because like if I can handle these hills, I can handle flat. But I did too much. I kept testing myself in every run. Whereas if I now pare it back and 2 to 3 runs are easy pace, not even thinking about it, then there's that one pretty challenging run during the week. And then there's that one long run during the week. But they're all varied now. They're all that little bit different. And that's been a huge, huge help.
But talking about that adaptation, like there is a great saying in running that it never gets easy, you just get quicker. And I think the whole idea behind that is that, yes, if I was to run the same pace, if I was to start a program and I was to set 5 minutes per kilometer as my interval pace now, and I was rigid and in a month's time I was still running 5 minutes per kilometer, then it's going to feel easy. But you don't want it to feel easy. You want to continue with the same intensity and you just will get quicker. And so I think that's kind of what that's saying, it never gets easy. You just get quicker. Means that, okay, yes, when 5 minutes per kilometer starts feeling comfortable, we're now at 450. Okay, that's feeling comfortable. You're now at 445. Like it doesn't have to be massive increases, but you should nearly know what it feels like. And that's, I suppose, kind of, you can link that back to heart rate, but you should know kind of the perceived effort of your intervals. Like, what are you trying to gain from this? If it's a tempo, it's obviously not going to be as tough as an interval session. So when you can feel it, the pace doesn't matter as much. You're going to go for that tough workout feel.
I finish every boot camp the same. That the ladies will say to me, goes, Jesus, Seán, this doesn't get easier, does it? I was like, nope. Because if it did, I'm doing something wrong. It can never get easier. You're just getting stronger. Sometimes you have to remind them, it's like, hey, 6 months ago, you're doing this with this kettlebell. Now you're doing this with this kettlebell, and show them that adaptation, show them how much they progressed. So if it gets to the stage where every session is like, oh, that's easy, I'm getting the hang of this, as in like, they're not completely crush someone to death, but at the same time, they feel like, okay, that was hard. That part of the session was hard. If you're not getting that in your sessions, for the most part, there's something up there, and you're not going to have that adaptation, that change.
And this is where, like, for me, the first time I realized the adaptation being reward based in the simplest form was with Zwift. So you when you do an initial test, you get an FTP. So that's you trying your very best for a certain period of time, and it's usually, for your beginning one, it's shit. Like it's really bad. But when you're doing the workouts and you're cycling in the Zwift world, you're getting points, and the accumulation of the points goes quicker if you're at a higher watts for longer periods of time. So if you're at a low watt just cruising around, they don't go up as quick. Whereas if you're really turning
expert, and I didn't know that.
Yeah, Zwift expert. This is where I was kind of teasing myself with rewards for going faster. So they seem to go up at a slightly, maybe you're covering more ground quicker. But obviously, if you're going faster, you're covering more ground. So if I'm doing an hour training session, I'm getting a lot more in. So as your FTP, you do a test every 4 weeks, it goes up again. It's actually like, but the intensity does not change. You have improved, so therefore it alters your training session to still make you fucking tired. But you are noticing, I am going quicker. I am upping the levels quicker. I am unlocking this quicker because I'm getting fitter. So it's hard to see that when you haven't got metrics. And that's where heart rate training can be so difficult, because you're going really slow for a long time until the body starts to adapt, and then you start to just get quicker for the same effort. And that's where this all kicks in challenging that effort and how fast can you go for that same heart rate, So it is bizarre. So I suppose my little advice is for people, do keep a training diary. Keep how hard was this? Write a little note of, I stopped at 3.9k because I thought I was going to die, and I ran at this pace and this pace. And then a month later, go at that pace again. Like, this is too easy. You're adapting, and then start to set those new challenges for yourselves. Get to that point where you feel that you're not necessarily going to die every time, but uncomfortable. Like, yeah, that was tough. And then that the body has developed. You have developed, you've improved. But, and again, it comes with the caution, don't do it every time, because sometimes the body needs to feel like, this is really enjoyable, thanks very much. Probably 70% of the time, it probably needs to do that. You only really have to push yourself that 30% to that level of real uncomfort.
Yeah, I mean, even in this day and age, if you think the idea of getting out a book and stuff and write it down, which is probably the best way of doing it. If like all the effort of that, I forget, I'm always rushing to the next thing. Even on your Strava, just have that, rename the run. That felt like death, or just something as simple as that. Like we talked before about Strava, like if you have not that we're promoting or anything like that, but if you pay for the subscription for the year, it does have RPEs on different runs and how easy, medium, or hard those runs were. But even just on the top of the title, hey, Strava, hard 10K today, or had to stop early and stuff like that. So when you're scrolling through your activities and you're like, oh, geez, I had to stop when I did this run, and now I'm at this, like, it can just give you an extra little boost to keep on going and see how far you've progressed. And on that note, if anyone's got anything else to add to this week's episode of the podcast?
No, when Eric passed a comment about whatever you said about something being lovely, all I thought of, my dinner's just cooked and I can smell it and it smells lovely. That's my cue to get out of here.
No better bombshell to end this week's episode.
I love yous and leave yous.
Rachel,
Bye.
enjoy your dinner. Eric, finish off Finland, and we'll see you back here soon. And I'm just going to go. That's it from the three of us. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.